But moving forward, you also were is seen as an Aquino critic. Is that correct?
It's just because it's my role in the minority to be a critic. Because if you're part of the minority of Congress, whether the Senate or the lower house, it's your job to be the fiscalizer, providing the check and balance for the administration. I will support the Aquino. I've been supporting the Aquino administration if the policies are 100% correct. But if I see that there are flaws in the implementation, or problems being raised by the Filipino people are not being addressed, or policies and programs where we gave budget to is not being implemented properly, then I think it's my job to speak out and call them out on the issue. But I've never based my criticisms on anyone's personality. It was always issue-based, because as far as I'm concerned, attacking people on a personal level should not have any place in politics.
In public discourse.
Yes.
So let me ask you then, how would you describe Philippine politics today?
It's too personal. People have lost their objectivity as far as addressing issues are concerned. People tend to side with other people based on who the personality is. And even people vote and elect people into office just because of their personality, not based on track record and performance.
How can it, you've been there 3 terms. I mean, how has it changed, and how can it change for the better now? What can be done?
You know, in my district, I never give money to my constituents. If they have problems, I always solve the root cause of the problem. You know, it's so easy to be a politikong tao eh.
Right.
Like for example, for scholarship programs. A lot of my congressman friends would say, I have 10,000, 20,000 scholars. And they ask me, I only have 1,200. And I ask them, how can you have 10,000, 20,000 scholars? And they go, we give 1,000 pesos a year and they're my scholar. And I say, then they tell me, what do you do? I say, I pay for their tuition fee in full to make sure that they finish and graduate college. And they go, you should have spread that out, the money out, so you'll have more people who will vote for you because may utang na loob sila sa'yo. But that's not my job. My job is to change the people's life as a legislator. If it will only entail 1,200 scholars and that's how far the money will go, then I will have 1,200 scholars, because I want to make sure that that person's life changes after I have helped them through the money of government, because I don't want to waste government funds on projects that I feel will not really help them out. That's why for the last 9 years, I've been known as Congresswoman Libre in my district, because for the last 9 years, every day from Monday to Saturday, 5 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon, I provided medical clinics in my 3 towns in my city of Olongapo, and we provide free healthcare, free doctors, free medicines from babies till senior citizen, free maintenance medicine of the senior citizen for hypertension, diabetes, and arthritis, free dental care, free dentists, and I'm the only legislator in the history of Congress, past and present, that has a free diagnostic laboratory for free urine analysis, fecalysis, blood chemistry, sugar, and cholesterol. That's why my public school teachers get their medical exams, which is a requirement of DepEd, yearly for free.
Right.
And I'm the only legislator in the history of Congress that has a free drug test laboratory accredited by LTO. That's why my tricycle, jeepney, bus, and taxi drivers get their drug test exams for free.
How do you fund these projects that you bring in? In the last 2 years, you've received no pork barrel.
You know, since I started in August of 2004, I never had any pork barrel then. I only got my first pork barrel in January of 2005, and I already started it then. Let's put it this way. I got crippled when the Aquino administration decided to withhold my PIDA for the last 2 years, which I found unfair. If they have a beef against me to magsaysay, don't take it out on my constituents. They deserve that money because they're taxpayers and they've been contributing to the national wealth. But instead of sitting down in one corner and cry and tell them, sorry, I cannot continue my programs, what I did, there were a lot of private corporations who have helped in my course as a congressman, which I never asked for any help in the past. And they're the ones helping me now. Most of their corporate social responsibility funds, they're putting in my district. And I never asked them for cash. I always ask them in kind. If I needed something for my medical program, like my medicines, I give them a list of the medicines I need. For my diagnostic laboratory, I give them a list of the reagents I need. And for my drug test laboratory, I give them a list of what I need. They procure it, they bring it to my district. And how thorough I was in accounting for each and every tablet, where it went, because I normally make my constituents sign for all the programs. I've submitted that to COA before when I was a congresswoman, when I had my PDAF. I also do the same policy with the private sector. And that is why...
So you went ahead and funded. You looked for funding for the projects that you had.
And I'm not the type who'll just sit down and cry. I'll fight back. And I'll fight back because it's my obligation to help my constituents.
So question there, I mean, in terms of, you're seen as a critic of this administration. You explained why. Yet this administration seems to be doing well now. how does that change the
Well, if I'm glad if they're doing very well, because sometimes, let's face it, in any administration, no one's perfect.
Yes.
You always need somebody to kind of prop you up, to challenge you to do better. And if that's my role to challenge them to do better and to prove me wrong, then probably I'm doing a good job already because they're always on their toes, doing what's good for the country. They say that our economy grew, but I'm glad, I'm happy. But then the economic growth should also reflect inclusive growth, and it should be felt by the grassroots level. Because up to now, if you look at the surveys, people will still say they're still poor. 53% will say they're poor, they're hungry, and they still have no jobs. And that is why I want that the economic gains made by this administration should also trickle down to the grassroots level by providing real jobs, real opportunity for them to have money to buy food on the table and not to rely on dole-outs coming from government. That's why it's very important that this May 2013 election should really be a reflection of the true will of the people. There's so many issues about the PCOS machine,
yes.
Flying fast
That's
and
one
free.
of the questions that have come
Flying
in.
fast
What
and
do you
free
think?
nowadays.
Yeah. What do you think of the COMELEC?
What I think the COMELEC should do is if they saw that initially with the PCOS machines that they brought out, there were a lot of flaws. It didn't read the ballots, it didn't transmit the ballots. It's about time they start airing all these 75,000 PCOS machines nationwide and start running them. Just to make sure that by the 2013, it will be running well and it will be accurate. Because you know what? Sayang naman, all the gains that the administration has moved. They went down to 3.2% economic growth. They're now up to 6.6% growth. I don't want that to be negated after the elections because people will not have any trust in the government because the PCOS machine failed to provide the real mandate of who should have won in the elections.
You talked about politics being too personal, too personalistic here. How can you change it? You're running now for elections. You've taken strong positions on unpopular positions on certain things. How will you change the tenor of politics in your campaign?
For me, it's very important to educate the people. What's a sad thing here? Some politicians don't want their constituents to grow because they see that if the poorer they are, it's easier to control them. That's why I want to have a strong middle class. Because once the middle class is very strong, they earn their own money, they cannot be dictated on anymore because they'll say, hey, you're not feeding me, you're not feeding my family. Whatever comes in my table comes from my own toil. And I will vote for whoever I want. I want this person, and I'm going to vote for that person. You cannot dictate to me kasi may utang na loob ako sa'yo kasi I get my medicines from you or my family goes to you every so often for every little thing.
How do you deal with those values that have been in many ways twisted? Like utang na loob is a good thing in the beginning, but now it's twisted.
Maria, when I started out in 2004, my district was used to traditional politicians. But I changed that. When I first ran and I opened my medical clinic the first time, people lined up because they wanted to get cured. And there were some people there who said, why will I line up? I'm your leader. I helped you win this election. And I said, thank you so much for helping me. But as far as I'm concerned, I already thanked you for it. If you need help coming from me, I think we have to ask permission from all those 1,000 people lined up. And if they agree na mauna ka, fine with me. But you have to deal with them first. I don't mind ruffling people's feathers, but I will always maintain a consistent policy from start to finish because if you are consistent and you don't play favorites to anyone, people will learn to respect you. And that's what I got in my district.
This is interesting because the perception, I think you asked this earlier, is why is that brought up being an Arroyo supporter? The perception is that you benefited from that.
Actually, that's the misnomer of it all. I'm the one who was least close to GMA in the past administration. I never went to presidential trips. I never had any extras as far as my PDAF is concerned. I never was one of those who benefited from PCSO as far as ambulances are concerned. The fertilizer scam, I was never involved in that. The NBNZT, etc. Look at my record. I'm sure the administration looked at my record. Considering I'm the vocal critic of this administration,
yes.
They found nothing. Because I didn't benefit anything from her. And then she was wary of me also.
Yes.
Because I'm too vocal for her. Like I would call a spade a spade. There were instances.
That's just not very culturally representative. I mean, why? Are there negative things that have come at you as a politician because you call a spade a spade?
Well, probably people find me too vocal, too frank. And I guess Filipinos would always like to be patronized. But for me, a real friend is someone who can call you out if there's something wrong. Because people who usually patronize you, they're the ones who need something from you. And they'll say, and they'll praise you to the high heavens so that they can get something from you. But since I have nothing to get from them anyway, I would rather tell them the truth. And that's why there were so many times in the past that I used to get entangled with all her cabinet secretaries who were her alter egos.
Yes.
And they used to make her sumbong and tell her that, hey, she got mad again in Congress. She called us out for that policy and this issue. And I'd tell her, this is the reason why I called them out. And there were so many things in the past, except Maria, it was not highlighted before because I was part of the administration. Right. It's just highlighted now because I'm in the opposition. I'm part of the minority, and normally it's always fancy to get the opposition's point of view on any issue. But before, even if you look at my sound bites in the past administration, everyone would say, "Oy, nakita ka namin sa TV, may pinagagalitan ka na naman."
So you're saying you've been consistent.
I've been consistent.
Well,
even in my advocacies, I've been very consistent. I don't waffle on issues. I'm not a fence sitter. I'm a straight shooter.
Lots of questions coming in from social media. From @Fallovs2023. This is a few days ago. You said you're a total supporter of Tuwid na Daan, and I think he's referencing this. How could she be a total supporter of Tuwid na Daan while being a total supporter of GMA? You kind of answered.
I only support GMA because she's an ally in the minority, but I never supported her on issues that I felt were against the people's interests.
Fantastic. From @Baranda Irwin, why is she running for Senate instead of supporting June Magsaysay?
I was the first one who was announced. June Magsaysay came 2 months after.
This is from @HoyMamasili. Any of your campaign's projects supported or sponsored by cigarette companies or its stakeholders?
None.
From @MartSambalud, do you think the RH law reflects the conscience of women based on church's dogma? That's a tough question.
It depends on who the woman is, because nowadays people say they're Catholics, but they veered away from the Catholic teachings. If you're a strict devout Catholic, you will definitely take the position of the church. But some people become liberal-minded. So I have no offense against anyone who's pro-RH. As far as I'm concerned, I respect anyone's opinion and decision. It's just a matter of, it's very difficult for us legislators because we're the ones who have to call out and make the hard decision of where the money of government should go. And I have to take into consideration the taxpayers of this country. If they're willing to spend $3 billion on procuring condoms and contraceptives, or putting it instead, probably pay $1 billion for condoms and contraceptives and $2 billion in scholarships for the poor, which I know will alleviate the plight of the poor.
How would you describe your voter today? How would you describe the Filipino today? Because it seems a lot is changing. We're in the middle of change now. How would you describe your voters?
Well, like in my district, normally they get money from the politicians, my opponents, but they end up voting for me. That's why I always win landslide. I never used money in any of my elections because I feel that if you like me, you vote for me. I've worked hard for 365 days a year, 24/7. So I don't think I should buy your vote. If I buy your vote, I'm fooling myself. So I would rather just present myself, give my track record, my performance. I've never been involved in any anomaly. The Aquino administration cannot pin me down with anything. People are trying to keep on associating me with GMA just because it so happens she's my seatmate in Congress. The closest I got to GMA is she being my seatmate.
Now.
Yes.
Well, let me throw you this also that's come in. I mean, June Magsaysay is your relative. He is announcing. Do you guys ever talk about politics?
Actually, when they asked me last year, I said I want to run for the Senate. He never said he wanted to run for the Senate. He said he was already retired from politics and that he's old already and he just wants to attend to his farm. So I said, okay, if you're not running, then I'll run. And then that's why Binay announced me in March.
Right.
And June Magsaysay was announced in May. So it's not my fault anymore. He has to be the one to do the explaining, not me. But I will never hit my uncle because I always have respect for elders.